Woo! Well, I'm rolling past the signs again. The names all fade like yesterday. Each town just leans into the wind, then lets me go along my way. A woman's laughing on a porch, a dog asleep beneath the chair.
Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you've built, your job, your relationships, your habits, your dreams, feels like a carefully constructed prison. Not because it's terrible, not because it's tragic, but because it's fine. You've checked all the boxes: education, career, social life, even a few accomplishments you were proud of once. But something deeper stirs in the background like a faint, persistent whisper. This isn't it. This isn't who I really am. This isn't what I was meant to become. And yet, you keep going. You keep playing the role. Smiling on command, posting photos of vacations that feel more like escape routes than adventures. Every year begins with hope and ends in silent resignation. Not to something catastrophic, but to something worse. A slow erosion of your soul. Under the weight of expectations you never fully agreed to. Why do so many people end up living lives they privately despise but publicly defend?
Well, I'm rolling past the signs again. The names all fade like yesterday. Each town just leans into the wind, then lets me go along my
It's not just you. Look around. How many people do you know who radiate genuine fulfillment? How many are still curious, still burning with purpose, still living in alignment with what they once believed mattered? You can feel it in conversations flat, rehearsed exchanges filled with safe topics and distant eyes. You can see it in the morning commute, in faces pressed against train windows, their minds already halfway gone. You can hear it in the way people talk about the future, just a few more years, maybe next year, once I retire, as if life is a thing to be tolerated now and lived later. But here's the unsettling paradox. No one forced them into this. No one dragged them into the career they hate. No one arranged their friendships, chose their routines, or stole their wildest dreams. Most of us walked into this prison with eyes wide open, holding the key the entire time, and then quietly slipped it into our pocket and forgot it was ever there. Why? Why would a species capable of poetry, rebellion, exploration, and transformation choose comfort over truth, conformity over aliveness? Why would we construct entire lives that are silently suffocating us and then defend them to the death? Could it be that the life we secretly hate is also the life we secretly believe we deserve?
I've seen the sun burn down to red, heard children fight and old men preach. but not one word that someone said could tie me down or try to teach. So I keep walking, wheel or shoe, through dust or rain or neon sign.
What if the real prison isn't made of circumstances but of beliefs we inherited without ever questioning? What if the greatest tragedy isn't failure but success in the wrong direction? And what if the scariest part about changing your life isn't the risk, but the unbearable thought that you could have changed at any moment and didn't? You weren't born to settle. You weren't born to make peace with mediocrity and call it adulthood. You weren't born to feel most alive only when you're drunk, distracted, or daydreaming about an alternate version of yourself. But somewhere along the way, a quiet agreement was made. You agreed to be less than what you are. You agreed to shrink, to play small, to trade wildness for stability and authenticity for approval. And like most people, you didn't even notice you signed the contract. So here's the question that matters now. What part of you had to die for your life to become this bearable? That question has no easy answer, because it lives in the shadow, the part of your psyche that stores everything you've denied, suppressed, or rejected to survive in a world that rewards obedience more than authenticity. It lives in your trauma, in the voices you internalized as a child, in the stories you absorbed from parents, teachers, influencers, religions, and pop culture. It lives in your bones now, disguised as personality. And so you wake up each day and call it normal. But there is something in you that knows, something ancient, something that stirs in quiet moments and roars in your dreams, something that refuses to be silenced any longer. And if you listen closely, it's still calling. But before you answer, you need to understand what you're truly up against. Because the problem isn't just personal, it's systemic, psychological, and deeply philosophical. It's not just your life that feels wrong. It's the entire framework that taught you what right was supposed to look like. And to break free from a life you secretly hate, you must first expose the hidden machinery that built it. Let's go deeper. To understand why so many people end up in lives they secretly hate, we have to go far beneath the surface into the unconscious, because the real problem isn't your job, your relationships, or your bank account. Those are just symptoms. The real problem is how you were trained to see yourself and the world around you. Let's begin where most of us began, childhood. From the earliest age, you were taught what's acceptable and what isn't. You learned which emotions were rewarded and which were punished. You figured out how to earn love, maybe by being quiet, helpful, smart, funny, or successful. In psychological terms, this is called adaptation, but Jung would have called it something else. The formation of your persona. Your persona is the mask you wear to survive in society. It's the socially acceptable version of you, polished, filtered, obedient. It's the good boy, the good girl, the high achiever, the peacemaker, and it's useful. It helps you belong. But there's a cost. Behind the mask lives the part of you that never got to speak. The wild one, the honest one, the one that still cries out in dreams or explodes in moments you can't explain. Jung called this the shadow, and it holds everything. You had to reject to be accepted. And so, step by step, piece by piece, the real you was hidden not just from the world, but from yourself. This is where the problem begins, because as you get older, society continues to reward the mask but punish the soul. You're praised for working 60-hour weeks, but not for taking time to feel. You're admired for staying in relationships that look good but slowly destroy you inside. You're told to be confident but not too confident, authentic but not too authentic. And so you become split, a performer on the outside, a prisoner on the inside. This is why the life you built doesn't feel like yours. It was chosen by your persona, approved by your culture, but never checked with your soul. Now let's zoom out further, because this isn't just psychological, it's philosophical. Think about how modern society defines success: productivity, status, followers, achievement, optimization, comfort. But what did philosophers like Nietzsche say? Become who you are. A man who has a why can bear almost anyhow. Nietzsche warned us that conformity would be the death of the soul, that the pursuit of comfort would rob us of meaning, that without suffering, rebellion, and inner transformation we would become tame. We are endlessly chasing illusions, success, pleasure, love, recognition, only to find they never satisfy. And Sartre, he said we are condemned to be free, that with no external meaning handed down to us, we must create our own and carry the weight of that responsibility. Most people can't bear it, so they escape into roles, routines, and ideologies that numb the existential terror of not knowing who they are. And so we settle, not because we're lazy, not because we're weak, but because we are terrified of what it would mean to truly live on our own terms, terrified of disappointing our parents, confusing our peers, breaking invisible contracts we never even signed, terrified of being seen and then rejected. So we trade freedom for familiarity. We trade aliveness for stability. We trade authenticity for approval. And little by little, year by year, we build a life that's safe, successful, and profoundly soul-crushing. Until something cracks. For some, it's burnout. For others, a breakup, a death, a diagnosis. For many, it's just a slow, unbearable ache that becomes impossible to ignore. But that's where change begins, not in clarity, but in discomfort. Because discomfort is the shadow knocking on the door. It's the soul reminding you, you were not born for this. You were not born to repeat patterns, fulfill roles, and die quietly in a life that looked good on paper. You were born to ask the questions that terrify you. You were born to break the cycle. But the next part, the transformation, comes with a price, and most people aren't willing to pay it. So, you've realized the life you're living isn't fully yours. You've seen the masks, the compromises, the quiet betrayals of your own soul. Now comes the most important question of all. What do you do about it? This is where most people expect a roadmap: 5 steps to change your life, 10 habits to build a new self, a morning routine that will solve your existential dread. But the truth is, there is no formula. There is only a path, and it's different for everyone. But it always begins the same way: radical honesty. You have to be willing to say the words, "I don't want this life anymore," even if it's working, even if people envy it, even if you've spent years building it. That sentence is terrifying because it pulls the rug out from everything you've relied on. But it's also sacred because it opens the door to what is real. You cannot create a life that feels true until you destroy the one built on lies. But let's be clear, this path will cost you. You might lose people. You might lose your reputation, your routine, your sense of certainty. You will almost definitely lose your old self. And that's exactly what makes this journey so rare and so powerful. Most people never take it. They dip their toes into healing, read the books, listen to the podcasts, but stop short of the plunge because they want transformation without death. But true change is a form of dying. The old story has to burn. The old identity has to fall apart, and that process hurts like hell. It's why Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But if you do face it, if you walk through the fire, you don't just escape the life you hate. You become someone new. You become someone who no longer fits into the system that built your suffering. You become someone who doesn't need external validation to feel alive. You become someone who is dangerous to the status quo because you've remembered your power. So what does it actually look like, this reclamation? It starts with questions, real ones, not superficial self-help affirmations. What part of your life feels performative? Where are you still chasing approval? Whose voice is still guiding your decisions? What truth have you been avoiding because it would destroy the illusion? Then you start removing what doesn't belong, the job that drains you, the habits that numb you, the people who shrink you, the beliefs that never belonged to you in the first place. You might do it slowly, quietly, or dramatically, all at once. There's no right way, but what matters is that you begin. And as you do, something strange happens. You stop needing permission. You stop waiting to be chosen. You stop trying to explain your evolution to people who never saw the real you to begin with. You begin to live not for applause, but for alignment. Not for comfort, but for truth. And you realize it was never about changing your life to look better. It was about finally creating a life that feels like home. But here's the final twist. Even that new life won't save you. Because the goal isn't to build a perfect identity, a flawless lifestyle, or some enlightened version of yourself who never feels lost again. The goal is to stay awake. To keep asking, to keep shedding, to keep becoming, and to make peace with the fact that your truest self is not something you find. It's something you create each time you choose truth over comfort, depth over distraction, and soul over performance. So if you're sitting in a life you secretly hate, let this be the crack in the illusion. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are simply standing at the edge of something terrifying and sacred. And whether you step forward or not will define the rest of your life. The choice is yours.